An anime completely and utterly tarnishing its manga's reputation. Does that ring any bells? No, I'm not talking about 7 Deadly Sins, and neither am I talking about hentai. Adapting this manga truly was one of Netflix's biggest mistakes, because they took a manga that had potential to be up there with the likes of Jujutsu Kaisen and turned it into an absolute disaster. From One Piece pacing to 7 Deadly Sins animation, it seems like Netflix truly tried their best at making this anime unenjoyable. It's a manga that isn't totally unknown, however it has been in the shadows for quite a while now and I don't appreciate how underrated it is. The anime did its job in bringing this manga into the spotlight, however not in the way that I would have liked it to, and for reasons we're pretty much all aware of by now. So here's why I think you should completely disregard the Record of Ragnarok anime and give the manga a read. One of the most impressive parts about this manga by far is its art style, which is the main reason I'm so disappointed about the anime, because it really doesn't do it any justice whatsoever. There are many, and I mean many, examples of the art style in this manga absolutely excelling and surpassing that of any other new gen manga out there. And that's primarily because this remains very consistent. You could have a chapter go on for like 50 pages and every panel would still be beautiful enough to make a grown man cry. I mean, just look at this shit. This is literally the first fight of the series. The artist immediately lets you know he's not playing around, and I think this is exactly what a shonen manga needs. When you're drawing a manga that focuses primarily on fighting and the over-exaggeration of what the human body is capable of, it becomes vital to put a lot of points into the art, because that's what a lot of people are there for in the first place. But when you take a scene of a guy yawning and spend 20 whole seconds on it, I don't want to spend too much time ranting about how good the art style of this manga is, so I'm just gonna show you a couple of my favorite panels from this manga, while hopefully not spoiling too much. Alright, I think you should be hard by now. Record of Ragnarok does something very unique with its set of characters that I don't see happen that often in other shonen series, or even other anime in general, and that is the fact that it takes people from real life and modifies their character traits to make it seem like they were actually just an anime character all along. A prime example of this is Leonidas. Leonidas, as you all are most probably aware unless you're living in a pineapple under the sea, is one of the most infamous kings in our world's history. He's had countless movies be made around him, and this is essentially because of the fact that he was the king of Sparta. Sparta, a Greek city-state, has an extremely strong reputation. Its people are always thought to be warriors, winning battles they were greatly outnumbered in, and when you think of a man who possesses pretty much every trait of masculinity humanly possible, an absolute testosterone machine, you think of a Spartan. To put it simply, they're what a 9-year-old lone wolf skibbery sigma male thinks they are. So to take the king of Sparta, Leonidas, and put him in an anime is certainly not the easiest of tasks, as anime has a reputation around pretty much the entire world of being nerdy, cringe, unrealistic, and really just made for children. Thankfully though, this reputation is beginning to fade with time. So at first impression it sounds like mixing Sparta and anime together is like trying to mix water and oil. However, Record of Ragnarok somehow pulls this off, and it does a very impressive job. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but Record of Ragnarok pretty much takes these very prominent figures in our real world, such as Adam and Rasputin, and puts them in the same verse as fictional gods such as Anubis and Thor, crafting a diverse range of characters that seem to be out of the ordinary and put into comparison with the other new gen shonen, who I find to be extremely entertaining when mixed together, and I think you probably would as well. I never thought I'd be reading a fight between fucking Satan and Nikola Tesla, but now that I have, I can honestly say I wish I did earlier. The fights in this manga are a combination of both the extremely aesthetically pleasing art style and the unique cast of characters. One thing I'm a fan of especially is how the fights are actually executed. Instead of following the same path as most other fighting series, where right before a character is about to be hit with a soul-taking blow, a flashback immediately spawns and they get a huge upscale, Record of Ragnarok actually gets the flashbacks done before the fight. A fighter is introduced, the next fighter is introduced, and they both get their flashbacks. And then they begin fighting, leaving the audience with no worries about having to go through a flashback during a high-tension attack sequence. Now, whilst the manga certainly has its advantages, which I most definitely failed to mention every single one of them, there's also a couple downsides you should be made aware of before actually reading it. I'd like to preface this by saying I don't think this should by any means stop you from reading this manga, as almost every manga has its cons and it's pretty much an integral part of a manga artist or even any artist's progression as a whole. The plot is definitely one of the most notable downsides to this manga, and this is because there's nothing really extraordinary about it. In fact, compared to most other new gen shonen manga, the plot for this one is very subpar. The story revolves around an event that takes place once every 1000 years called Ragnarok, which is when the gods get tired of the humans, and instead of wiping them from existence completely, they decide to give them a chance at deciding their own fate. There's a list of 13 fighters from the gods side and a list of 13 fighters from humanity's side. As I mentioned earlier, each one of these fighters will have to go against a fighter from the other side, not knowing who they're gonna end up facing off against, and if they win, which is done by killing the other fighter, they contribute a point to their team. And of course, just like a game of rock paper scissors, the first to a certain number of points wins. And on top of that, the world building is absolute dumpster juice because everything takes place on one stage, except for the flashbacks which take up 80% of the anime. The chapter schedule is a very minor con for this manga, as it releases a chapter once a month. Now, for some people this is considered a long time, such as One Piece readers, because we get a chapter once a week or once every 2 weeks. For other manga readers, such as JoJo, this is considered normal. When it comes to the newly established sizzle scale, I'm giving Record of Ragnarok an 80%. I don't think it's reached masterpiece status yet, but it's certainly up there, and I think if it keeps replicating what it did with some of its best fights, or does even better, it will be at masterpiece status by the time it's over.